Julius Caesar has long been branded as a power-hungry tyrant, the man who destroyed the Roman Republic and ushered in the era of imperial rule. But is that narrative as straightforward as we've been told? What if Caesar wasn't just a dictator bent on control, but a leader responding to a political system already in crisis? The truth is, Caesar's rise to power was far more nuanced than a simple grab for control. His actions were not the cause of Rome's downfall, but a response to problems that had been brewing for decades. To understand this, we must examine the political chaos that had engulfed the Roman Republic long before Caesar crossed the Rubicon. By the time Julius Caesar emerged on the political stage, the Roman Republic was already in deep trouble. While it outwardly functioned as a democracy, with voting citizens and elected leaders, the reality was quite different. True power rested in the hands of a few wealthy aristocrats in the Senate. These elites controlled the government, the military, and the economy, while most Romans were left struggling. Economic inequality was rampant, with vast amounts of land concentrated in the hands of a privileged few. Veterans returned home from Rome's wars only to find themselves destitute, while ordinary citizens faced crushing debt and poverty. The Senate, meanwhile, was more interested in preserving its wealth and status than addressing the growing crisis. Though the Republic was technically a democracy, it operated as an oligarchy, ruled by a small group of elites who ignored the needs of the people. As inequality deepened and frustration grew, the Roman people became desperate for a leader who would truly represent them. It was this fractured, failing system that gave rise to Julius Caesar's popularity and set the stage for his leadership. Unlike the Senate, Caesar recognized the urgency of reform. His proposals weren't just clever politics, they directly addressed the problems facing ordinary Romans. He sought to redistribute land to veterans, provide debt relief to struggling citizens, and initiate public works projects to create jobs for the urban poor. These reforms weren't simply popular, they were essential to stabilizing a society on the brink of collapse. Caesar wasn't grabbing power for the sake of ambition. He was stepping into a leadership vacuum created by a failing republic. Caesar's rise wasn't only built on his military victories, it was grounded in his ability to connect with the people and offer hope. His popularity with the masses wasn't a ploy, it was genuine. Yet this popularity made him a threat to the Senate, whose power depended on maintaining the status quo. Caesar's reforms, redistributing land, easing debt, and increasing representation for the provinces, challenged the very foundations of the Senate's authority. Their wealth and privilege were at risk, and they viewed Caesar not as a reformer, but as an existential threat. The Senate's response to Caesar's growing influence was one of fierce resistance. They accused him of seeking kingship, branding him a tyrant in an attempt to discredit him. But their true concern wasn't the fate of the Republic, it was their own power. For years, the Senate had used the language of democracy to justify their actions, opposing reform after reform under the guise of protecting the Republic. In reality, their resistance to Caesar was about preserving their privileged position, not defending democracy. In 49 BCE, Caesar faced a pivotal decision. The Senate had blocked his political future, prosecuted him for his actions in Gaul, and left him with no pathway back to Rome without facing humiliation or persecution. Forced into a corner, Caesar crossed the Rubicon River with his legions, a decision often depicted as the ultimate display of ambition. But this act wasn't a calculated bid for control. It was a desperate response to a Senate that had left him no other options. Faced with submission or rebellion, Caesar chose rebellion. Caesar's march on Rome wasn't the act of a man trying to overthrow a functioning democracy. It was a response to a system that had already collapsed under the weight of its own corruption and inequality. The Senate far from being defenders of the Republic, had allowed it to deteriorate into dysfunction. Their refusal to address societal problems and their hostility to reform made the Republic's downfall inevitable, with or without Caesar's intervention. The tragedy of the Roman Republic's fall isn't that Caesar seized power, it's that the system had become so broken that someone like Caesar was necessary to restore order. Decades of mismanagement, inequality, and resistance to change had hollowed out the Republic's institutions. Caesar's rise was a symptom of a much deeper crisis, one caused by a ruling class that refused to share power or listen to the people. The Senate's inability to adapt to the realities of Roman society only hastened the Republic's decline. In the end, Julius Caesar wasn't simply a tyrant bent on seizing control. His actions were driven as much by necessity as by ambition. His reforms were an effort to fix a broken system that had failed its citizens. Caesar's rise to power wasn't the cause of the Republic's collapse. It was the result of decades of inequality and the Senate's refusal to change. The Senate's resistance to reform, their relentless grip on power, and their disregard for the needs of the people set the stage for the eventual fall of the Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire. So, was Julius Caesar truly the power-hungry tyrant we've been told he was? The reality is far more complex. He wasn't a villain bent on destroying the Republic. He was a leader trying to save it from a system that had lost its way. His story is a reminder of the dangers of a ruling elite that prioritizes its own wealth and status over the well-being of society. If you found this exploration of Roman history insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shaped our world. Let's continue uncovering the truths behind history's most enduring narratives.